The protection of whistleblowers is an ongoing conversation in the country and the role they played in some key investigations. Now, the issue of their safety often tops the agenda, but at the same time, Public Interest South Africa says it is deeply concerned by what it calls mounting tensions between the Justice Department and the NPA. The organization says this is having an impact on progress on state capture cases. Let's speak now to the Public Interest SA Chairperson, Tebogo Khaas, who's joining us live now. Thank you so much for your time. Good evening to you. You say that the justice system is in turmoil and this is impacting state capture cases. Tell us why.
Bongiwe, thank you for having me. You know, as you can see, even the blind can see that not all is well at the NPA or in the Department of Justice and the NPA, insofar as their relations seem to be at. You would have read many news reports which only until today the NPA has failed to dispel. Even today's attempt with a media statement that they issued, they do not really address the issues. In fact, they just make the more questions are raised than are answered. For example, we do know for a fact that there has been ineptitude within the NPA going for over years. Forget about the state capture thing for now, the state capture report for now. We've got matters that have been sitting where whistleblowers have been murdered, going back to 2009. Here I'm referring to former Mbombela Municipality Speaker Jimmy Mutlala, who was murdered a day before he was going to give testimony about the corruption that occurred in the building of that Mbombela Stadium. A matter whereas witnesses have disappeared, crucial information have been ignored, and even attempts to even reach out to the NPA to try and establish where the problems are have been met with cricket silence from their part. Now you.
Pardon me for coming in there. It sounds like you're not even convinced by the statement that they released earlier. I mean, they're both saying that the articles that are being published are trying to create a false impression of a hostile working relationship between the entities, and they're saying that they're cautioning against misinformation campaigns and fake news at a time when government is trying to enhance the rule of law by providing the necessary support to the NPA and other law enforcement agencies. Are you saying this is to try and save face?
No, this is just to save face. And in fact, it's even insulting of the public because we know for a fact that not all is well within the NPA and the DOJ insofar as our relationship is concerned. To start with, the NPA wanted to have carte blanche, monopolistic control over the Zondo Commission report and material related thereto. That has since been pushed back by the Department of Justice, we understand. And that hasn't been dealt with by the NPA insofar as is that correct position or not. And secondly, and most importantly, they have failed to deal with the swirling rumors around revelations around the Minister of Justice, which of events that occurred over 10 years ago or around 10 years ago while she was still mayor of Polokwane. Why are those matters only rating now? We just have to ask ourselves, should we be connecting the dots, or is it just a happen chance that it so happens that they get revived now with the VBS related matters? That said, we are saying the NPA years must also be given credit to the fact that it has gone on to acquire the services of experienced lawyers and prosecutors in Pretoria as well as Chaskalsons, to beef up their prosecuting team, because we cannot afford an NPA that has failed. We've seen already what has happened with the Nula investment prosecution, which has failed before many are caught, and that does not inspire confidence in the NPA. And now to hear that they are actually bickering over Zondo, who has got access to ownership of the records, we all know it should be the Department of Justice that controls that material, because the Department of Justice can then share it with other investigative bodies, including the SA Police Services, as well as the SIU and any other agencies that has lawful access or that requires lawful access to that material. And the NPA. Yes.
Pardon me. In light of all of this that you're saying right now, what then becomes your impressions when it comes to the progress of state capture cases, for example, and how then we continue in that particular regard. Just pause the Nulan investigation for now, but look at other matters when it comes to how much they are progressing or not.
Which other matters? We've got Brian Molefe in Parliament today deciding on the budget for the NPA and the DOJ. We've got many others of Brian Molefe's ilk who are implicated in state capture corruption, now in the legislature, determining the direction of the NPA and the DOJ, only because of the lack of agency within the ranks of the NPA. You don't want to have a perfect case before you litigate. They've got all the material that could have started on to make sure that they get successful prosecutions before court. Instead, we hear bickering about access and control over certain pieces of evidence. The longer these matters drag before courts or before they even reach court, the more difficult it becomes to prosecute them successfully. And that the NPA knows very well. And it is letting the public down in not acting in a manner that is expected of the institution.
What message does this send to whistleblowers?
It sends, today I had, as I do often, almost on a daily basis, I have had to interact with one of the family members of a deceased whistleblower. I can't mention names. It is very disheartening to hear the kind of plight and hardship that befall them because of what the government fails them. Where they struggle with legal costs, where they struggle with closure because government is dragging their feet in prosecuting those, even in instances where evidence has been placed in the hands of the investigating officers and even the National Police Commissioner himself. We have found victims and their families still reeling, still being failed. And we ask ourselves, what more? Who should we be turning to if the NPA is still shouting as to who must have access to this and the other piece of evidence? We are really being let down. Are we better off today about the NPA than it was under Sean Abrams? I leave that for the public to judge. But for where I'm sitting, we are really feeling very disappointed by the NPA. I have felt it because we have engaged the NPA or tried to engage the NPA on specific matters. You'll be lucky to get an acknowledgement of receipt of your letter. And in the event that you do, you get promises of things that never how can it be that in day and age, it takes more than 10 months for an institute like an NPA to respond to a matter that involves one of the whistleblower victims. And you ask yourself, do they really care about the very same people that they claim to be dispensing justice on behalf? And really, this is just absolute failure. And it is smoke and mirror to actually be pushing the blame elsewhere, when the blame should actually be falling squarely in the NPA's door.
All right, let me thank you so much for your time. That was a Public Interest SA Chairperson, Tebogo Khaas, and we will reach out to the NPA as well as the Justice Department for a right of reply as well here, because they have released a statement saying that for them everything is above board, but as you listen to Public Interest SA, it doesn't sound like they're convinced by the joint statement that was released earlier on.